Hello to all future students who might be watching this video. A few months ago at SatsConf, Lucas very kindly invited me to give a workshop on how to run a Bitcoin club at your university, your college, your school, your just local community. And it went really well. I think the students that all attended it found some value in it, but it wasn't recorded. So I thought I would put together a recording and walk through the workshop again with you all. And so this is the slide deck. I've made a couple tweaks since November when we did this, but hopefully this proves valuable to you as well. And as always, if there's any questions that come up, please just feel free to reach out and more than happy to help you in any way that would be beneficial. So the day before the workshop, Lucas also really kindly hosted us at Casa 21 to do a student meetup. And so this is the picture from that. And then this was the workshop itself. And so we're gonna, unfortunately, no t-shirts and stickers for everyone that's watching this online, but future in person we'll have the swag back. And right before we dive in, I did just want to make sure that everyone is aware of our link tree, which then if you go, so I put the link right up here, it's just linktree slash BTC students. And that is the place where all of the documents that I'm going to talk about refer to can be found. And I would say this is probably the most helpful document in that folder that you will see. And this I'm calling like a startup guide. It is broken up on the left. You can see like pre-start of the semester, just during the semester, after the semester, when you might want to think about doing different tasks. And I also really want to emphasize and reassure that you by no means need to complete every single one of these tasks. It's purely just, so you're not, oh, what do I do first? Where do I start? Hopefully, this is very exhaustive of, you know, more than what you could do, and you certainly don't need to follow it exactly like this. And also, there's many ways to do this. Success can occur in many different ways, and so this is just what I have done, and it's by no means the best. I'm sure there's people that will come along and do this much, much better than I could. And so if you have any suggestions or things where you think there's an error, please do let me know. Would be super grateful to have your input there as well. And I also want to kind of reiterate that for me, what success looked like was just getting a group of people together to have a conversation that might not otherwise occur. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind when you're thinking about starting a club. You don't need to, have a meeting every week or, 2 times a month and have it be a very planned out meeting. It could really be as simple as, maybe you and your friends are already planning to go on a walk together or have dinner together. And you just, talk about Bitcoin for a few minutes of that. Or you share like a podcast link the night before you're set to see your friends. And so that is success, having these conversations and building community. And so that can take many different forms. Okay, so let's get into it. And this is going to just kind of be from the viewpoint of what did kind of a week in my life look like when I was running the Cornell Bitcoin Club. And since when I first did this workshop, I've now transitioned the club over to a new leadership. And so far, they're doing an incredible job. And I know that's a big concern that people have is, well, I start this club, but once I'm gone, how is that going to work? So now that I've actually done it myself, hopefully you can have some relevant insights there. And okay, so this is just a rough schedule of what my week would look like. And so this will look very different depending on what projects you might do in your club, what your kind of goal is the club, and what your members are really hoping for. and also when you meet. So, for instance, we met every Wednesday. So that is kind of the, I don't know, focal point of how my schedule was then structured. And so I think let's just start on Wednesday. I would meet in the morning with my co-president, Sal, who is in the MBA school here. And then ideally post-meeting, you might have one of the other, we'll get into this, but we called them minors rather than like executive board. So someone else on sort of the leadership team put a reminder post out on social media. Um, Later in the semester, I had budget to order food for our meetings, and so I would do that order. And then I also, a little bit different for the second semester, I was running it than the first semester, which was last February. And so this was, that was last spring. And then this fall is my second semester. I tried to help lead meetings with other students. And so they kind of were in charge of it, but I was there to kind of support and just be useful however I could be useful. And so if I wasn't leading the meeting, I'd often look over their slides. If I was leading the meeting, I wish I could finalize them sooner than kind of the night before day of, but I was probably finishing the slides, printing any notes. I sometimes like to kind of structure my thoughts so that I don't ramble. And so I would have some notes, and then we met at 6 p.m. And so then we'd have the meeting, and it would be about an hour, and then sometimes people stay and chat a little bit afterwards. Thursday, I would just kind of prep for our like leadership team meeting that we would have on Fridays. I always kind of wanted to go in with an agenda of what are we going to talk about, what are we focusing on, and then if Friday came, we would have that meeting. Saturday was often if I might be kind of preparing the big email that I would send out to everyone in the club. So we had 124 members, and not everyone would come to the actual meetings, but we had our mailing list and they were all on that. And so every meeting that we had, I recorded it, and I would also send, the schedule and other helpful resources in that email. Actually, now on our website for the club, it's just cornellbitcoinclub.org. There is a tab called Time Chain, and you can go in and read all of the emails I sent and how I structured it. Excuse me. So that was Saturday, kind of getting some of that ready. I would also try to make the draft the posts for what we did that week for like Nostr, for X, Instagram, LinkedIn. Honestly, I fell down on the job for Instagram and LinkedIn, but tried to be pretty good about Nostr and X. And then kind of miscellaneous, you just want to make sure that your room is booked for your meeting if that is something you are doing. Coordinating with if you're having anyone come to speak with the other people that you're leading the club with. You want to make sure that you're keeping track of your expenses, that all of the calendar reminders are sent out. If you're running projects, doing those check-ins, and then also thinking about ways to engage other clubs on campus. And we're going to get into some of these points, but wanted to briefly touch on it then. So let's hop back over to Sunday. I would send out the full email, and then also just make sure that we used a platform called Campus Groups. And it was just a website that everyone in the university could see what events are going on, what's happening. And so just making sure that all of our meetings were uploaded there with any relevant links. Monday, one of our projects is working on a study looking at Bitcoin adoption and financial freedom across 25 countries with the Brooks Tech Policy Institute here. And we have about 10 people from the club that are participating in that. So we would have meetings kind of bi-weekly, sometimes longer than that, on Tuesdays. And so any prep for that that I wanted to make sure was done. And then we also kind of some of these notes that I haven't touched on is ideas for social posts. And so Monday, for instance, could be like Miscellaneous Monday, maybe some news happened, maybe you want to highlight a member. And then there was on Friday, kind of a recap of the meeting, Saturday, also some news events. This is totally, you can figure out what works best for you, but something else, of course, you have all your members in the club that you want to support, but also think about how can we engage with other clubs and other students on our campus and reach them. And so I'm not personally on Instagram, but I know a lot of people are. And so it can just be a good way to kind of reach those students who might not otherwise know about you. All right. So best practices. Oops, sorry, I skipped too fast. I kind of bucketed these in three. So the first is operations, just how do you run this club? Some things to keep in mind. Leadership, how do you, really foster a good team and be supportive? And then finally, engagement. How do you, ensure you're creating something that provides value and is a place where your members and others on campus would like to come? So first things first, you're going to need a name, a logo, and some type of brand, just so you can have some consistency. I'll give a shout out to Bitpolito, a club in Italy, and they have an incredible kind of vision of their club, way better than what I have created. But, just something that you can start to establish yourself. And then you would want to establish your mission. What are you really here to do? Your vision, how are you going to do it? Any goals that you want to work towards. And then you'll also want to, that will be included in the constitution that you'll write. And then you're going to want to ratify it with your members. And all of these templates you can find in that big spreadsheet that I outlined. So you don't need to start from scratch. And of course, you can edit anything that you would like. And I also have on here a screenshot of what I'm calling a proof of work cluster. Maybe someone can find a better name for me on this, but essentially, most clubs, at least in the US, have some sort of group called their executive board or their e-board. And a lot of the clubs have an application to join that club. And for us, for Bitcoin Club, as we all know watching this video, Bitcoin has no application to join it. It's permissionless. And so it didn't feel right to me to have an application. I really feel like, Bitcoin is for everyone here on campus to learn about and come if you're curious. And I didn't want an application to kind of be something that turned others away. And so we have no application. And also, instead of a e-board, we came up with a miner board. And so how this works is there's three different clusters in this proof of work clusters. You have your hodlers, your nodes, and your miners. And so you can move through all of them in any order that you would like. Obviously, you kind of need to start as a hodler, and it's really just try to be a transparent framework of how much time and energy are you wanting to give. And it's okay if it changes amongst semesters, but that is really the idea behind it. And so that's what we use. Okay, I think it's very important early on in your semester, or even if you can do it, at the end of one semester before the start of another one, is to really get your members' feedback on what workshops would they be interested in doing, what projects are they excited about. And so that is what some of these forms are. It's basically, let us hear some workshop suggestions. Maybe you have others, and then also some project ideas. And these forms are available as well. So you can definitely copy those also. And then same thing for events. And so, I think with a club, in my opinion, people really want to join them for two reasons. One is looking for community, people that you enjoy being around and want to see. And two, it's skills and kind of alumni job, career based. So community and career. And so events are a really good way to kind of build those bonds amongst your community members and also engage other clubs on campus and strengthen those ties. For instance, Like number 5 on here is proof of work, like run for a cause challenge. So you might think that the running club and the Bitcoin club have nothing in common, but actually, we know how Finney and running Bitcoin, you could create an event like that. And then both groups are learning things from each other. For instance, maybe there's like a food club. You could do something that's like sound money meets sound food. How has fiat money destroyed our food and fed kind of big food, big pharma? Have those conversations. And so these are just some ideas, but you can really sky's the limit on ways to come up. I think we all appreciate how interdisciplinary Bitcoin is, and especially when you get into the more philosophical realm of just how you want to go about living your life, it really opens up a lot more doors. So events are a good way to do that. Next, moving into kind of looking at your team that you are working with. I think it's very helpful if you can be clear about your asks and ensure you are preparing your team to the best of your ability. Everyone has a lot going on always at all times. And so if it's just pretty clear, Ella's doing this, Vicky's doing that, everyone else can see it and maybe collaborate in some instances. But, your tasks will really depend on what type of club you structure and how you want it to look. But it is, I think, helpful to have that framework so people really know what's expected, how they can participate, and what they should keep their eye on. This is actually just more in depth of the proof of work cluster. Already kind of went through this before, but here you can see it in a little bit more detail. And so just generally, you can, for instance, I have on here the proof of work required to be like an official hodler, 6 meetings. Totally arbitrary. You can do that however you would like it to be. And then, for instance, what are some of the tasks involved with that? There's a variety. It's like you can maintain the club's website, social media posts, work on one of the projects that's going on. It can really be whatever your club needs the most. Okay, having a plan is super important. So I kind of have sort of been reiterating, but as soon as you can kind of put this together, the better. Obviously, there is kind of the caveat of you also want to get the feedback of the people that are in your club. So you don't plan a whole semester that is not interesting to them. Some clubs in the Students Network are more, let's say, technical focused. Some are really kind of energy, Bitcoin mining focused. Some are very general. And so you'll just kind of learn your audience. And so these are the ones from the past 2 semesters that I ran. And then, everyone can just see and be on board. One thing I didn't really do very well, but in the future, I think is good, is if you can write like a little description of the meeting and then include any, resources you think would be helpful for people to look at beforehand and afterhand. Maybe you have a speaker and they mention something and you can kind of pop that there in that post-meeting resources. I would say if you choose to look at the emails, like for instance, we did a panel on Nostr. I wrote up kind of like a whole description and included the resources, but I didn't put them here. But just kind of some points where, I have improvement that I could do as well. Okay, budget is really important. Some universities will give you a budget for your club, some will not. Eventually, the Students Network would really like to be able to support clubs and kind of help with some of this funding piece. And just, for you, it's really good to keep your receipts and keep track of your expenses. This is like a very, very basic kind of budget just on Google Sheets, but you can take it and adopt it as yours if you would like. Especially maybe you're going to have some recurring expenses that come up. For instance, if you have like a Google domain, or for instance, we set up a node, so we have that expense every month. Good to just, keep track of that. Some other things that can be helpful to keep track of, especially as your clubs are growing and changing, is, how many members do you have? How many events, projects, partnerships? This is all really good to just highlight the proof of work and, all the effort that you have put into it. And so it can really take any form that you would like, but it's really nice to be able to look back and see it all. And so that's something you might want to consider. Okay, moving from operations into leadership, you will want to decide on kind of what positions, what do you want your team to look like? And so for us, it's changed from the first semester, the second semester, and even to like the third semester. We added a head of design position. And so you can really kind of sky's the limit on how you want this to look. We have had, required by the school, a president, a vice president, and then a secretary and a treasurer, and a club advisor, like a faculty member. And then it's really up to you, how else you'd like it. So we kind of went with a subcommittee model. So one for like athletics, one for academics, one for alumni. You really want to think about how can you just engage the whole community and kind of dividing that up based on what other groups your members and leadership team is already in. So, for instance, with the Bitcoin Club here, we also, unlike many other clubs, there's just one Bitcoin Club for the entire university. It's not, maybe a different one for undergrad and graduate and law and MBA. So we have, people from all over the school and university that are involved. And so the people that are on sports teams are kind of like on the athletic subcommittee, or the people that were really interested in engaging with alumni are on that one. So you'll just want to think about, who do you want on your team? And then I didn't do this the first semester because there weren't many of us on board, but the second semester, I thought it would be helpful to kind of start our semester with what are we really doing here? Why are we here? Why are we doing this club? And kind of have that grounding of how we went about deciding what we wanted to do. And so this was just, a TED Talk that I really enjoy. And so we did this exercise, and everyone kind of went around and, explained their why for being in the club and what they felt like we could really focus on. And then you also really want to highlight your amazing team that you have. And so it took me too long to do this, but kind of, share the amazing work that your team is doing publicly so that they can also kind of build their Bitcoin resume, show out their proof of work. And so I think, Bitcoin, we peer to peer, we really want to support each other in our network and highlight them. And so would suggest doing that. And this is just a little bit different type of support. So we have like the public support, but then the internal, I compiled this doc of resources. It's gotten decently long. It's by no means perfect. But it can be hard to find good resources if you don't know where to look, if you're not on Twitter. And so this is just meant to be, okay, let's start here, and then it might get you down the right rabbit holes in searching. Most of this is in English though. And so if there's, the Students Network, we have students across 69 countries. And so if you all have resources that you would really like to share, or if you make one of these, and for instance, it's all in Portuguese or Italian, would love to know so that we can share it with the rest of the network and others. And then the transition document, that is for, as I was talking about earlier, when you're no longer leading the club, how can you just set it up so like you can kind of write yourself out of it? The club functions without you. And so I think maybe it would probably be helpful at the end of this to actually go through it and show what I put together. I've heard good feedback on it, so hopefully it's helpful. But I'm sure others would have better iterations of how to do it. Okay, now leadership was pretty quick. Now in our third bucket, engagement. So you are going to want to have some place for people to find you and all the amazing work that you're going to do online. And so having like a YouTube where you can upload all of your videos or even Zapstream. I did a couple meetings where we did it on Zapstream. And then they exist up on there. Also an X, Nostr, LinkedIn, and Instagram. LinkedIn is nice because it is, if your members or your leadership team, they can add it to like their experiences, or it just is another way to kind of support those that are a part of your group and your community. So that is why that's on there. I know it might seem a little bit odd. And then a link tree or I don't know if it's still, I think it's still up, but there's a Nostr version. I think it's called Nostr as well. If you want to do that, that's super. But just if you can kind of make it easy to find a place to find you and all the work you're doing. In terms of website as well, our first iteration was just on Notion because it's free. It's really easy to set up. You can have links there. But I did just build us an actual website as well. And so you're welcome to do that. And then for all of these accounts that you're creating, you're like, I think somehow we racked up like 18 different accounts. We use a password manager. So you probably are going to want to set up something like that, or I mean, I don't know, like a YubiKey or, something of that nature. Ours that we're using is LastPass, which I know is not great. And I think they just had a hack. I chose it because it's really easy to kind of like share folders of them. And we don't really have much anything of scarce information. But you're welcome to take this in whatever way you think is best. Okay, I've touched on this, but really the importance of kind of working with other communities on campus. So on the right is just a list of like all of the different clubs on campus here. And then on the left is a list of alumni from Cornell that are kind of working in the Bitcoin space. It's really, they have just been so incredibly supportive. And so it's wonderful if you know of alumni in your school that would maybe like to come and speak or kind of maybe mentor someone or just really have that resource. And it's also just, yeah, a really good way to kind of hone back on the community aspect and the like, let's just have conversations that otherwise might not occur aspect of these clubs. Okay, more engagement. So we talked about the events at the beginning. Um, for starters, if you have budget, having food at meetings is, I think, always well appreciated for us, especially because it's on kind of an evening time. It's been a long day. Everyone's kind of tired. And for us also, I want to just bring a note about when you choose to have your meeting. So for us, I was like, okay, Friday, everyone wants to go enjoy their weekend Friday. Monday's also a hard day. And then Tuesday and Thursday is when we have our exams often, or our prelims. And so I was like, okay, that leaves Wednesday. So that's when we had meetings. So you just want to keep that in mind if there is kind of a an exam schedule there. Maybe having like a big little system. So our club is just a little bit too new for this, but the idea being you have seniors in your club that have been in it, for significant time, and then they kind of get paired to a freshman or a first year, second year, and maybe of a similar interest or just a person, that's kind of been in their shoes. And then another idea as well is to plan gatherings for grade specific. So I think reflecting back when you're in your first year, you can feel maybe a little bit intimidated or, oh, what if I'm not going to know anyone? And so let's say you have an event where it's just for all the first year students, maybe you get a greater turnout because they, more of their peers, I could say. Plan fun events, like maybe there's a hockey game that's like a really big thing at your school or whatever it might be. And maybe you all go together. Or for instance, we did two kind of parties. We did one for the halving. I know it's only every 4 years, so we kind of lucked out that it was going on during our first semester, but we did a halving party and brought like board games and we ripped a pack of trading cards and we got set up on Primal and sent sats. We had food, like a cake, and then this earlier this year for we did like a white paper party, and we also did a trivia game. So D++, it's called I think it's bitcorn.io is the address, but basically you can it's like chat, but your messages, it's all through Lightning. And so we did like this fun trivia game with that. And so good way to keep people involved. And, also on this note of cultivating community, every meeting, hopefully you might have new people, and especially for your first meeting, when everyone kind of gets there before you start your lesson, I think it would be really nice if you could say, hey, everyone, introduce yourself to the person next to you. Like, let's stand up, let's meet each other. That is something like, for instance, we did this workshop in at SatsConf before I started. I was like, hey, everyone, let's all meet each other. And so that's a good way. You kind of put yourself in the position to do that icebreaker, to kind of kickstart people having those conversations, because sometimes people don't want to turn to the person next to them and say, hey, I'm Ella. So if you can do that, that would also be nice. And also, you can, make sure people know they can ask questions anytime. And I also put a anonymous question form that people knew about. I've actually never had anyone turn in an anonymous question, but it was just important to me. I didn't want people to go without having their question answered if I could answer it. And so we had that if people would so choose. In that same folder, you'll probably see like a resume bank for if companies reach out and say, hey, we'd love an intern, do you have any suggestions? That's in there. There's kind of a whole slew of different docs and files. Okay. I got ahead of myself. I forgot this slide was right after here. So we have a resume book for the Students Network as a whole, and then, for instance, the club as well. So it's good to have that and just kind of, yeah, just I like to prepare for things, unsure if they will actually end up happening, but just trying to get ahead of it. Good step. And yes, okay, so I mentioned that I kind of uploaded all of these on the website, but after every meeting and before every meeting, I sent an email. Before every meeting, it was, a reminder, this is what to expect. And then after every meeting, I gave a little summary, maybe any news. I included all of the links to like the slide deck, the recording of the meeting, anything else that might come up. And then at the bottom of all of the emails was kind of our event calendar for the rest of the semester. And then if like all of the meeting recordings thus far, if people missed one and just wanted a really easy place to go back and see something. Okay, so this is kind of like I suppose more of like a nitty-gritty in your actual slide decks. So having a variety of let's see, let's start like big and then small. So you maybe want to mix up not having just, you get up and talk and kind of have a slide deck and it's more of like a lecture style. For the first semester we did this club, there was more of that in the club because I felt like it was important to build some type of foundation. Um, Certainly there's ways to do it without just doing a big slide deck. But so you might want to have a mixture of speakers, slide deck, actual hands-on workshops, like really engaging things because, Bitcoin is a tool. It's meant to be used. So let's learn about it, use it. Let's do projects. Let's kind of dive into what we feel uncomfortable in our topic areas about and really get in the weeds. And so there's that. You can do like a mixture of workshops, projects, slides, speakers, maybe a visit to if you have some, I don't know, field trip criteria you could do. And then let's say you do have a slide deck. You can also think about how can I make good use of images, of graphics, of charts, of videos, of, short clips. And so those are all really great to include to kind of break it up so it's not just so much text. And then I also, whenever I did a slide deck, well, actually, I really tried to do it for every meeting, is sort of have like a weekly news update of let's just start with what has happened in the world in the past week. We met every week, and I totally stole this idea from the Houston Bitcoin meetups. I think a lot of places do it, but that is where I learned it. And so that's a good place to start. You might want to write yourself notes. I touched on this earlier, so that you just feel, for me, it helps if I can just write out what I want to say or the points that I want to make ahead of time, just so that I don't feel like I miss anything, or if maybe someone asks a question and then you go down, a whole slew of questions there, which is awesome, and that's the goal. And then you might think, oh, where do I need to get back to? That's good. And then warm-ups are always nice. So, for instance, one of the first meetings I ever did, the white paper used to be on Macs. I think in the newer updates it's taken off, but we started with like, let's just kind of go on like the scavenger hunt of our computers. And then ta-da, the white paper appeared. And then we kind of started the lesson. And so things like that, you can look back at the slide decks that I have done and see what I have included. But that's what I mean by warm up. And then, so once you're a part of the Bitcoin Students Network, or reiterate our kind of phrase is like decentralized, not disorganized. And so you can take all of this and do it in any way you think best. You, of course, if you're a node, you would have kind of signed the official registered node form and seen in there how it's, we only talk about Bitcoin, or for instance, Nostr, or truly decentralized open source projects, protocols. And kind of agree to uphold kind of the values that would align. You can read all that text there, but collaborate with the rest of the network. Whenever someone has a meeting, everyone else is welcome to join it. Everyone else gets the Zoom link or whatever Google Meet link people are using. You join the Telegram. That's most often where you can find everything. I did make like a shared calendar where you can add it to your own calendar and see what events and meetings are happening. But yeah, we're growing and it's all over the world. So collaborate with others that are very far away from you to those that are really close. And at conferences, we're trying to be purposeful as well in doing student meetups. So like that's the picture in the middle at Bitcoin 2024. So yeah, there's a lot of people, and how part of this started for me was that I felt like I was the only Bitcoiner at my school. And, I said, okay, I'm going to start this club. And if there's one person that shows up, well, then that's worth it for me. But it turns out, I mentioned Sal earlier. He's from El Salvador and he's a huge Bitcoiner. And he was just literally across the street in the MBA school. You just have to create the space to have these conversations and to build this community. And I am pretty sure you will find that you are not the only one. But if you feel like you are, you can really see from this and the rest of the network that there's many more students out there who want to support you and see you succeed as well and would love to meet you. And here's just some of the club logos, clubs that are happening around the world. And yes, I would say, this is just like a screenshot that I had grabbed of when I made the Twitter account, and a lot can happen in a year. If you told me in December 23 that in a year from then there would be 124 people in this club, I, probably could not have imagined that. And so just start whatever starting looks like to you. Just keep taking that next step. I'm here anytime to do whatever I can to be helpful if you want to bounce ideas off. But there's really no wrong way to do this. It's just having these conversations and building this community. And you can just kind of let it turn into something, in whatever time span that works for you. And so I wish that we were in person so I could actually answer live questions. But I think what we should do now is kind of go over the transition document. And so if you just kind of follow, it's just it's like linktr.ee/btcstudents. So you come here, you can see it, for instance, Substack, email, X, Telegram for you to join that group, LinkedIn. It would be awesome if you could fill out this form if you would like to join as a node, and then I can reach out and be in touch. We have the same one for industry if you'd like to support the network. This will just take you to the website, but then this is the tab you really want to go to, which is resources. And so here you can see the slide deck that we just went through. But where you want to go is just logistic. And then we can just jump over to number 2. And this is number 4 that I'm mentioning about the registering as an official node. It'd be wonderful if you could do this. And there's just kind of a short kind of agreement form about how you're going to run the club. And let's go back over here though. So we have our startup guide. And so this is really going to have everything for you. And like I said, if you think there's a better way to do this, if I something, would love that advice and feedback. And let's just go to, I think, yeah, transition document right here. So let's click on this. And you can see the example that I put together. I had a starting from my university. They gave us a template and I edited it. But I just wrote a little note to the new presidents that are coming in. This is where I talked about, where our files were, just like Google Drives. We had one that was kind of, I guess, public facing, and then one that was in our Cornell domain. And so there's the 2 of those. I outlined what are the folders in these drives, how are they organized. So you can see all of that in here. And then these are all of our accounts that we have. And like I mentioned, we used LastPass. And so I shared it with them. And so that they could have that there. And then I put together a section of just key contacts, people that have helped me at the university, with things that come up, who I thought they might benefit from knowing and can reach out to. And then over here, this is kind of a lot of just information that was sort of given, but there's a new officer advice section. So for instance, I just put how I organized the Google Chrome to easily find things, just anything I could think of that might be helpful in some way. This is just kind of reminders, big timelines for the university over here. We have a reserving rooms platform, and I just put a video for them of how to do it in there. Oh, here it is as well. And then let us see. We kind of covered that piece there. At the end, I just made sure they knew contacts for minor positions. And so that is what's down. Again, this is just a document that's meant to be helpful. You all could edit it any way that you'd like. But so far, so good on the transition. And so I'm really grateful for the new team that is taking over. And I think that I have covered something. Probably inevitably I had forgotten something along the way, but I very much hope that this proved to be helpful. And like I said, if there's anything I can do anytime, please reach out and I am here. So yeah, please be in touch.